It should be all right, and that's everything that I'm explaining here will be available in that particular YouTube channel. Also, please use the Moodle database as frequently as you can. I try to make announcement via the the Moodle database. Also, you notice that there is a lecture handouts available. Use that. Then there is this instant feedback section. By the way, this instant feedback is very important to understand that it comes to my knowledge only. So if you really fed up with something that happens here in the lecture or guided tutorials, you really hate something, you can let me know that via that instant feedback section. And you can do that without showing your identity. You can absolutely do that without showing your identity. So if you say like, course is no good, everything sucks big time, there will be no way that I can figure it out who was that person. Of course, I'm doing my best to find it out, but there's no way in reality to find that out. So you can be relaxed. Okay, then there's another feedback, which is a completely another story. Then once the course is done, like when I believe around this time, they send you a feedback request regarding the simulation of a mechatronic machine. That goes first to curriculum head, department head, dean, rector, whatever, and then finally after months and months, it comes to my desk. Was there already a request like that? So there was. Was there a deadline for that? Oh, really? Okay. So it's still alive, still possible to do it. I'm thinking it is because it takes really a while before I get my feedback. And then, of course, they are not showing to me that directly because these big shot officers have to see it first, of course. Okay, now I really need to focus to stay in a subject matter. So now, robot kinematics, that is the final story we're speaking about, the three-dimensional kinematics. Now, shortly, the good application about three-dimensional kinematics is a robot kinematics, and because the robotics, the basic question typically is related to how is the robot motion, how is the motion analysis, and that's an analysis that is a kinematic analysis, not necessarily dynamic analysis, but the kinematics. And the big question, typical question in robotics is that how is an inverse kinematics? That means that the robot has a certain end effector place. Like say that this particular end have to be here in a certain configuration. But how is it you can reach that? How is the other body supposed to be in order to make that happen? And this is a question that is called inverse kinematic question. So, where my finger is supposed to be? It's supposed to be here, but what about the other joints? How the other joints supposed to be in order to reach this particular configuration? That's called inverse kinematics. Often obvious, at least for human, it is very obvious. I can even touch this place and not get confused. I can still speak. My computational capacity is large enough to make that happen. But for robotics, it may not be necessarily that simple. And why is that? That typically because, like human is a redundant system, many of the robots, they are too redundant. So what it means? It means that if I'm just speaking about the one point that I can touch, this particular point, I can touch this point in a number of different ways. I can touch it like this, I can touch it like that, I can touch it like this, I can actually touch it that like infinite number of different configurations. I can easily, move my joints and make still that to happen. So it's a redundant system. And that's actually what makes it a little difficult to deal with the inverse kinematics, because theoretically speaking, there's a large number of solution possibilities. And typically this is related to the fact that touching one point, that's easy. But if following the path, saying that I have to follow this path with my finger, Again, my computational capacity, no problem. A little bit of speaking is getting slower, but other than that, it is alright, so I can easily make it happen. But in robotics, it can make some funny things, so it can actually start funny, like changing the angles, like really stupid way, if you're not dealing that in a proper manner. Okay, so the kinematics, in a robot kinematics, big question is typically, how is translation and orientation in order to reach one particular configuration? So you know this, you know where the particle need to be in three-dimensional space, but what are the translation and rotation to make that happen? In case of one body, well, that's easy, but if you have number of bodies, it becomes difficult. Now comes difficult question. This is in class quiz. Remember what is redundancy? Redundancy in a robotic means that there is a possibility to reach one point in a two different configuration. Like this configuration, if there's a two possibilities already redundant. And I'm really super redundant person because I can touch that in many different ways. But in a robotics, if there's a two ways, it is a redundant system. So, what do you feel about this? Is this redundant or not? Let's discuss first before I put my Socrative on. First of all, there are three choices. Yes, it is redundant system. So you need to think, if possible, that this end here can be in this particular configuration. We are not speaking about the orientation, just the point. If it is possible to be there using this configuration, or if there's another configuration, you can reach the very same point. What that could be if that's the case. Or if it is just that you can touch this one point, nothing else, with one particular configuration, nothing else, then it is false. Or if there is not enough information to make that call. What do you say? Is this clear? Is clear? Clear? Sure? Is this because you have a can-do attitude or just that you know it? Both. No comments. Team Russia, you know what to answer. You do, okay. I don't know why I'm always asking Team Russia. Because you're the only obvious team here. What are the other teams we have? Team Finland. What else? What is your team again? India. Oh, Team India. But just one person. You know, to make a team, you need more than one person. So okay, so let's see how it goes. Let me check this. Arm robot shown here is redundant. Yes, no, not enough information to make this call. Okay? Should we take a look? How is your voting? That's right. Exactly what you just explained.
Can we discuss it?
Sure, you can explain.
There is a word there, or it goes from B to kind of roof.
Okay, if there is a roof, you know, you can neglect this. This is just to make you confused. This could be, this is exactly same than this configuration.
Okay.
So now it becomes clear. So this is not limiting the motion possibility. So let's take this off completely. And the joint is here. Now the question is, can you reach this point using another configuration? Hypothetically, if the first arm goes up, is it possible then? And look at this. So here's another important thing. Okay, here's what I forget to mention. There is no constraint in this end. So this is No constraint. So the constraints we have here is the revolute joint that is connecting the first body to crown, and the revolute joint that is connecting second body and first body together. We ready? Okay. So we go back. No. Here. 9 students are still thinking. So what, I don't think this is going to be 100%. Or is it? No opinion. No, I don't think so. This is what I'm doing, saying it's not going to be 100%. Thinking inside of my head, it will be 100%. But this is a little bit superficial, so let's see. Oh, okay, so we almost done. So just one is underway. Can we close this? Okay, but we need to set the rules. What if it is 100%? What if? What candies? That's the deal. So it's the next lecture means candies. I cannot cook, so it have to be something easier than pancakes. I don't know the recipe for pancakes. Can you do it by yourself? No. But pancakes is very, very complicated. That needs like hours and hours to do it, so I cannot do it. So it have to be more simple than that. So okay, so one is still missing. So can we close it, or is it the double locking? Oh, that's it. Okay, good. It's really good. So this is redundant because, let's go back here. Because you can reach this point by making the first body to go up like this, and then the second down like that. So you can reach the same point with 2 different configurations. Not a great example about the redundant system, but still, something. Still there is an example. We do have enough information to make this call, so this is not the possible, this is false as well. But my offer is still valid. As soon as you hit the 100%, there's going to be a party next week. Candy party. Okay, so let's see. Now, hold on. And I think, what is this thing doing? There is like, okay. Now let's look how it is that you can extend this kinematics that we've been used to deal with to robot kinematics. So this is what we are used to deal with. So let's make this a little more usable for application of robotics. Now, of course, it's always a little bit speculative, like what is more useful than another, but let's look at a little bit of different way. A little bit of different way is the use of 4x4 transformation matrix. This is another name, so this is another kinematic. So it is still based on what we are used to deal with. But as the title implies, this is a different in the sense that we are using, instead of vector and 3x3 rotation matrix, we're using 4x4 transformation matrix. Ingredients, components you need are with no difference. So we're gonna simply take the equations, the components that we are very much familiar with. So this is what we are used to deal with. We're gonna reorganize this component and build this 4x4 transformation matrix. It goes such the way that first I will take this translational component, and I'm going to relocate this translational component to upper right corner of 4x4 matrix. No thinking. Again, absolutely no thinking this time. No thinking at all in this course. Just doing. No thinking. Then you take another component, obvious component, which is this 3x3 rotation matrix, and you relocated that to upper left corner of the 3x3 translational matrix. Then what is left? Right now you have 3 rows, 4 columns, So it's still missing something. Now you just come and add one additional row in order to match the dimension. So you're adding a row which is having 0 component here associated to rotation, and then the one that is kind of like a scaling factor. You have to be 1 because we don't want to scale anything here at all. And that's it. That's your new representation. Now the vector u bar, which is the representation with respect to local coordinate system, we're going to simply build another vector based on the vector u bar by putting the vector u bar in the beginning of that vector and adding 1 to end of that vector. This is a new representation of local point of the particle we're interested in, and this is now called P. So we're changing the name and we're changing the representation a little bit. So what's the benefit? Well, it helps you to describe the point with respect to global coordinate system by using these 4x4 transformation matrix and vector B. So obvious advantages are unclear if you have one single body like shown here. Actually, no advantages whatsoever in my mind. But it becomes handy if you have one body connected, another body connected, another body. Then this actually brings you some clear advantages, because with help of these 4x4 transformation matrix, you can build the links in a very straightforward manner. And that's what helps you to build the kinematics for any robotics within a fraction of the time, or within the reasonable time. Let's put it this way. Okay, so here's an example. Here is a little bit of artificial example, but let's look this first and then let's see how this plays when we have number of bodies that are connected together. Okay, so I have here coordination B. This is coordination B that is rotated 30 degrees with respect to global z-axis. Nothing else. Coordinate B has also translated 10 units along the global x-axis and 5 units along the global y-axis. Explain me, where is this point located when the P here is expressed as it is shown here? Well, this is actually supposed to be vector u bar, because look, this is having 3 components instead of 4. So how it goes? Well, first, this information is associated to translation. So I can take these as it is, substituted here in this part of this upper right corner of the 3x3 transformation matrix, and that's all I need. Then I need to use a 3x3 rotation matrix in case of Euler angles to build this part of this 3x3 transformation matrix, and it comes directly from Euler angles. And then this information will be used to build the P. And then I simply multiply this 4x4 with the B, and this is my final solution, which is this one here. Okay, a little bit artificial example, but here when this becomes handy. Now I have different coordinate systems that are translated and rotated with respect to each other. So I have here my original coordinate system U, and then I wanted to travel to coordinate system D here. So how can I make it happen in a case of these 4x4 transformation matrix? Well, I can first move from U to A, and that can be expressed by, again, 4x4 transformation matrix, like it is shown here, U to A, and then from A to D, and that's it. That's how I can express my kinematics. There's another road to make that happen. I can also use it, the coordinate B and C to D, and with that road I can actually express the same location. So that's idea how the kinematics can be built. We still don't have enough information to make this usable, but the idea is this. Clear? Was it like, yes? Okay, good. Okay. So then, in robotics, to make this, what was explained here, to make this to be actually usable, we have to limit the possibilities a little bit. This is, system that is, this A can move with respect to you however it wants. So there's a 3 translational component, 3 rotational components. So this is big mass. Again, D with respect to A can move however it wants. Another 6 degrees of freedom. But in the robotics, that's usually not the case. Because if you think about the typical setup of a robotics, you can find something like this. Where is it? This is the typical setup. Meaning that the bodies cannot move with respect to each other as they want, but they're heavily limited. And typically the components, not components, but joints, you can find in robot kinematics, we're only dealing with a handful of choices, less than a handful of choices. Because typical joints you can find in robotics is, revolute joint. That's what you can find very often. Revolute joint you can find here. This I think it is a revolute joint. There's another one here, like this direction. They may be translational joint, such that things can get longer, and they may be cylindrical joints. That's it. Not more than that. I mean, of course, hypothetically they could be more advanced, but typically with these 3 choices you can do a lot. And now this limits the possibilities a lot. So it really helps, and it makes this to be actually a finally useful method for us. So how it goes then? In this case of translational joint, we can deal with the 1 parameter only, 1 variable only. In case of translational joint is 1 parameter, cylindrical joint is 2 parameters. So now what we can do is that we can check how is these parameters prior to kinematical analysis, or prior to define the kinematics, making something that is already kind of like half computed for us. And now this is how we can build the kinematics using 4x4 transformation matrix representation. Now here is a cylindrical joint, you need these 2 variables. Revolute joint, you need 1 variable. Translational joint, 1 variable. How is that they can move with respect to each other? Okay? Now how it is expressed here, this is 6 variables, 6 degrees of freedom. But that's not the case in reality, but it's way more limited. Now, there are many different ways to make this happen, but we're going to follow today the method that is called Dynamit-Hartenberg representation. Have you ever heard that before? So it's maybe the most used method. In my mind, it's still a little bit painful method, but it's still quite heavily used. Now, Dynamit-Hartenberg is a method that we are predefining 4 variables. And these predefined 4 variables are something that helps us to build the kinematics automatically. Let me explain. So, let's get started by looking what are these variables. And this is a little painful. And now when you look at these figures, don't get too confused, because I don't care about the details here. I want you to understand the big picture. So we are looking at the relative components. What are the motion possibilities between 2 neighboring bodies? Nothing else. Okay, so the parameters, these 4 parameters that are used in this Dynamit-Hartenberg method, first is defining the length of a robot arm. So the length will be defined by, let me see. Oh, this is a really, really small font. So is this, what is this? Hey, here it is, the length. Here is the rules, how you should define that very much in detail. So length measured along the x-axis. So it's basically this one here that I'm measuring. This is the length of the robot arm. My first parameter. Let's look in a second what that means mathematically. But first, let's define these parameters. And then, second one is an angle, how much these ends are twisted with respect to each other. So if I have first arm that is moving this direction, then the second one is twisted like that much. That is my second parameter. Can you see the twist? Okay, so that's my second parameter, and that is called angle alpha. Again, take it easy. I know that is really hard to adapt what exactly happens in details. No worries, because we're going to look at that in an example. Then comes the one that is hand in the case of cylindrical joints. How much two neighboring bodies are off in the z direction, measured along the z direction. So if there is a cylindrical joint, how much they are off. This is an example that I cannot show with using my arms, because I should take this one here and relocate it here. That will be painful, so it cannot happen. I cannot show that to you. So I don't have the joints like that. Then the final one is an angle, which how much they can move with respect to each other, in the cylindrical joint. So that's angle theta. Now what follows is a short mathematical representation associated to each one of these parameters. How it goes? It goes such the way that if originally I have 6 parameters, 3 translations, 3 rotations, so now many of them will be having the 0 value, meaning not active. The only ones that are active will be called as a parameter, as a variable. Rest will have a 0 value, and that's exactly the set of parameters that I'm going to substitute my 4x4 matrix representation. Okay? So here are my first set of parameters. Translations 0. Then the angle, I was just saying that incorrectly. Rotations equal to 0. Translations, everything equals 0 except along the x will have the value a. That's it. Now taking this set of parameters, substituting that to this representation, where you take this in a close look, you can see that, this one here is a rotation matrix based on Euler angles. These are my translations, and this is just to match the dimension. Once I do the substitution, this is how my 4x4 transformation matrix look like. You still with me? Nice. You sure? Because I'm getting confused by myself. Like, what? So, but that's what you promised to teach me. So if I get confused, no worries. So you can teach me. Okay? Good. Now, angle alpha. So now all the translation will have a 0 value. One angle will have a non-zero value, and that's exactly the one that is related to angle theta, because measured with respect to x. Remember the second rotation, what that was with respect to x. So this is my new set of parameters that will be substituted here. Once it comes back, this is how it looks. And then next, where again translation is the only non-zero value, this set goes here and then back here, and this is how it reads. Final is again angle. Now angle with respect to z, so it's my first rotation that is having the non-zero value, others are 0. This set goes here again and then back here, and that's it. Finally, my Dynamit-Hartenberg representation again is successive rotations, or kinematics that is combined. I take each one of these 4x4 transformation matrices, multiply them together. This is how it looks. How is it you can use it in a practical cases? Well, let me explain. Well, let me see what is next. Well, this is how it looked finally. But how is it you can use this in a practical cases? You can use this in such the way that you first build the matrix or table. Table is a better word than a matrix. You make a table, and each one of the rows in a table corresponding one body. And then you're selecting these 4 parameters to each one of the bodies. Once you have that, then you take these parameters, substitute it then back to this final representation of dynamic Heisenberg, which is this one. You get the kinematics for each corresponding each one of the bodies, and once you multiply them together, that's it. That's the end of the story. Do you trust me? Do you believe this? You believe it. Okay, let's see how it goes. Okay, this is a mechanism that we looked previously. So this is that double pendulum. So I have 2 moving bodies. These are the 2 moving bodies. And then here is my table. So my first body is this one here. Here's my second body. And what I need to do is that I need to set these 4 parameters corresponding these 2 bodies. Okay, let's get started. So the first one, though this is a little hard to do because the figures that are helping us are really, really small. These are the figures that are supposed to help us to set these parameters. But the first is the length of the body. Okay, how is the length of the first body? Well, that is something you can find it out from the figure. So length is L1 here. Okay? How much they are twisted. So if there is a first body like that, second body like that, how much they are twisted like this? No twist. No twist because they are remaining in the same planar space. Alright? So no twisting. So second parameter for the first body will be 0. Then how much they are off from, if this is my first body, how much they are off from this direction? 0. Here's our best student. 0. But you knew this method already, so that's why. Okay, then the final one. What's the angle between these 2 bodies? Theta. Okay, so the theta first is associated to this one here. Then the second body, length is L2 coming here, then is not twisted at all and is not moving with respect to z coordinate axis, and the second angle is theta. Now I will take each one of these rows, substitute it to my 4x4 transformation matrix representation, which in a full scale look like this. So once I do it for the first body, this is how it look. Once I do it for the second body, this is how it look. My final kinematics I can get by multiplying these matrices together. So let's multiply them together. This is how it look. So this one here, remember this part is associated to orientation. This part is associated to position. This tells me where the end of this double pendulum is located at. That's an equation that tells me. Without further knowledge, without no knowledge from the other kinematics at all. So it's, can we call it as a semi-automated? Semi-automated. Not the full automated, because still you have to have this table to make it happen. But once you have the table, then everything is matter of substitution. Can you say something? Makes sense? Well, none of this makes any sense. Happy? Unhappy? When I can go away? Well, I can tell you that. Very soon, very soon. Few minutes, and then we're good. Okay, I got it. Okay, so let's make a proof. So here's where the end is located. So let's do the same, but using the kinematics we are very much familiar with. So let's use this multi-body kinematics to compute where this point is located at. So I'm going to use a recursive method. So I'm going to take first this point as this as a body reference coordinate system. I'm going to substitute that information here. And when I do all the computing, this is how it looks. This is where the point is located. And now when you compare that to my previous here, it's supposed to be exactly the same. So it seems to work. But, what I just did was a planetary case. This one is a spatial. So I can make the kinematic for spatial robotics based on this 4x4 transformation matrix, and in particular this Denavik-Heitenberg method. Handy? I don't know. What is used? It is very heavily used. Okay, now, I promise that I will let you go. I will close, not let you go. I'm not going to let you go for sure. Never ever. But I promise that I will close today's lecture. This is the final notes regarding the kinematics. The difficult part about whatever you're dealing with the spatial kinematics is associated to angular velocity. And what is so difficult about that? Well, it comes from the fact that if you have the kinematics as we are used to deal with, and you use this equation to describe the velocity, you first differentiate this with respect to time, you will get the translational velocity. And then this will be equal to 0 because we are dealing with the rigid bodies, and then you're differentiating rotation matrix with respect to time. This will be quite complicated. And it can be expressed such the way that this A dot is equal than the rotation matrix multiplied by angular velocity, skew symmetric version of that. And now this is how the velocity look like. The big difficulty is this, that if you have generalized coordinates, which is, these components are x, ry, rz, and then if you're using Euler angles, this is the set of generalized coordinates in spatial case. Now, if you differentiate that with respect to time, you will get r dot x, ry dot, rz dot, and then the angular components as well. Now, you may think that this is equal than, can I write it? Yeah, I can write it here, than angular velocity vector, but it's not. It is not. They can be related, but relation is a bit complicated, and that's the whole thing. This, in short, what makes the three-dimensional kinematics to be painful. That's everything you need to know. Just that it is painful. But why it is painful? Because of this. Okay, so this is just everything that I explained. The angular velocity is not the same than time derivatives of angular parameters. You just cannot make it same. Not possible. No one has ever figured out how to make them equal. You could be the first one that can make it happen, but there is a huge body of literature available, and none has so far figured it out. They can be related with help of the matrix G, and the matrix G really depends on how is your set of rotational parameters. That will be the final thing that I'm explaining. I'm going to re-summarize this to you next Monday, and then we're going to move on to flexible multibody dynamics. Did you get that? Any idea what I just explained? Except that we're going to meet next Monday. But this story about this matrix G. That's fine, it's fine. All right, so let me close for today, and then we'll see you on Monday, and then it's going to be flexible multibody dynamics, flexible stuff. And that goes well with the theme of this course, because the theme is flexibility. Flexible. All right, so see you on Monday at 2. It is a little bit unfortunate that we are in a lecture room like this. This is not good lecture room because it's so huge. It's huge. It's huge. All right. See you on Monday.